Hey everyone, Seth here. Quick reminder, if you want to contact us with a question or comment or whatever, there are a couple ways you can do so. Either you can go to our email at more.layers.podcast@gmail.com, or you can go to YouTube, use the comment section below the videos, or a direct YouTube message is another way you can do that. And just feel free to give us any questions, comments, podcast topic suggestions, whatever, shout out, whatever, and we'll try to get back. Hey everybody, happy mid-March, and welcome to More Layers once again. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith. And on behalf of Seth and I, we hope you all enjoyed St. Patrick's Day if you chose to celebrate it some way.
Yeah, I'm not too big on it personally. I don't like go all out or anything. I mean, I did see another friend of ours on Sunday and just got some lunch and hung out at the mall. Simple, low key little thing, but yeah, if you had any special like festive celebrations, you guys can feel free to kind of tell us about it in the comments and the messaging and in the emails, and we'd like to hear.
Yeah, normally I would eat something like corned beef and cabbage because that's a big thing on St. Patrick's Day. I didn't do that because I'm still working on cooking some more basic stuff. Um, but a couple things I make sure I do every year on St. Patrick's Day is one of them is listen to High King's rendition of Rocky Road to Dublin. I usually do that at some points throughout the year anyway, but especially that day. It's just my favorite version of that song. And then the other that I make sure I do every year, my family does this too, particularly my mom. Uh, I forget which VeggieTales special this is a part of, but I know about partway through, Khalil in a sock puppet named Lutfi, he tells the story of St. Patrick himself.
Right, right. I think that was like a segment on the Sumo of the Opera video, if I remember.
I think that makes sense because the whole lesson of that special was perseverance, and off to the side, like Larry wasn't there because he was trying to navigate the city, hop on the correct buses or something. So like Lutfi was buying some time, but it's an interesting way to tell the story. And even all these years later, I still watch it. I'm still fascinated by it, whether it be the art style, the story, the little bits of humor thrown in. But it's something my mom and I make sure we do every year.
Yeah, that was definitely my own like first encounter with the actual story, life story of St. Patrick. I can't say I took much away from it, but yeah, that was like my intro, definitely.
Oh, for sure. And obviously, I don't know how accurate it is to the actual story of St. Patrick. I'm sure they did their research. I'm sure most of it is true. They probably took a couple small liberties in there for the sake of the story, but I'm sure they still got their point across.
Yeah, sure. I don't see why doubt. Yeah.
Right. And now,
So,
oh, go ahead, Seth.
yeah, were you just gonna say because we're doing like the Super Bowl this time?
Yeah, for those listening and watching, the topic that Seth and I have decided to go over this week is the Super Bowl, particularly this past one, um, or rather just the season in general. Maybe a little bit will get talked about too, but there will be a focus on the Super Bowl, and then once we're done talking about it, we will then go into our curious question where we talk about who we would like to see perform at the halftime show in the future.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I would say that this is like honestly the past few Super Bowls I think have been played really well. This for me was a definite edge of the seat one for me. Very close one.
For sure. I mean, it kind of started off relatively slow, like the first half, because the 49ers were in the lead for the vast majority of it. Um, so I kind of tuned out for the third quarter and then came back in for the fourth quarter, and it was all tied up by the end. Um, but even if it's teams I don't like, I know a lot of people will say that a good Super Bowl is one where it's not lopsided. Like it's close for most of the game and you can't really tell who's going to win.
Yeah, thankfully we haven't had too many of those. I mean, like I was saying, the past few years, very competitive games, and yeah, this one, it looked like one team might have had it in the bag for a while, and then the other came back and kind of took it in the end. And even overtime, this was the second time they had overtime. It came down to like almost literally the last second of overtime.
Yeah, it got pretty deep into overtime, which is kind of intriguing because usually I think the rule is in overtime, if you score a touchdown on the first possession, it's game over. But if you score a field goal or don't score before the other team gets it back, then they still have a chance to score and possibly win.
Though I
Like,
think they changed the rule a little bit this season where you can't win on a first drive touchdown, but you could on a first drive safety.
okay.
Yeah, I think that was maybe a new rule they established.
Yeah, I'd have to do my research on that because I hadn't heard of that rule being put in place, but I guess in a way it does kind of make sense because then more people won't be arguing about somebody winning based on a coin toss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some teams they
I've
could
heard
probably win, but then they just lose the coin toss and the other team scores.
sure, yeah. But yeah, and probably the most memorable play of the whole game for me anyway, was what I call like I kind of like to call it Philly Special 2 because it was kind of like almost like a sequel to like the trick play in Super Bowl 52 that was dubbed the Philly Special, where it was like three guys carrying the ball. It was like this guy to Corey Clement to Trey Burton to Nick Foles, something like that, and they scored on it.
And what really made it more fascinating for me, because for those that don't know, I'm an Eagles fan and I could not stand Tom Brady, um, is that I want to say it was not too long before that, the Patriots tried a similar play where they would kind of switch who has the ball around a few times and then they throw it to Brady who's running down the field. He dropped it. So I was already kind of happy about that because any boost to his ego, I can't stand. And then the Eagles, they tried a very similar play, which would go on to be dubbed the Philly Special, like Seth said. And they scored a touchdown off of it, which ultimately helped them win because they ended up winning by about 8. And if that touchdown wasn't scored, then things could have been vastly different.
Oh man, yeah, that was pretty exciting, and yeah, and so. Did you see like the Nickelodeon simulcast? I know you said you didn't see it live, but did you ever watch like the highlights on YouTube or anything?
I was trying to find them, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's because I was typing in the wrong things or something, but I would
Well, if you
usually
just
get
search like
very
Super Bowl
brief
Nickelodeon, I
segments.
think that should do it. Super Bowl Nickelodeon?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can try to see if I can find that while we're talking. I would usually just say like Super Bowl SpongeBob highlights. Maybe I was too generic. Because half the time I would also get that sweet victory fake out from
Right, right.
when Steven Hillenberg passed away, and they used the SpongeBob characters to pay homage.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it was mostly SpongeBob characters, but with a little bit of Dora the Explorer and maybe some other characters thrown in there a little bit. Um, So yeah. So basically, what they're doing now is to kind of make it appealing to younger audiences. Nickelodeon was doing the Super Bowl live at the same time on their channel and incorporating, some animation effects, SpongeBob characters, kind of giving their sort of commentary, added dialogue, probably improvised or something, but yeah, and getting really creative like that. And I did watch the highlights, and from what I saw, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I have a tab open now for at least clips of it, so I should be able to see at least some of it later.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to
But
see other channels, like maybe the major networks follow suit, like ABC do it with Disney if they start doing Super Bowls again or something like that. I would be up for that.
oh, for sure. That being said, though, SpongeBob characters aren't the only way the NFL was drawing a lot more viewers in. And for those that know who was in the Super Bowl, they can probably guess where this is leading.
Oh yes, and even Nickelodeon touched on that a little bit, unfortunately for you anyway. But I mean, it kind of bothered me. It probably would have. I'm trying to work on not letting it get to me, but I understand how you feel.
Yeah, for those that for some reason may not know, I don't know who does or doesn't. Uh, at one point during the season, Taylor Swift started dating Jason Kelsey, one of the players on the Chiefs.
Travis Kelsey.
Or oh, did I say Jason Kelsey?
Yeah.
Darn it, Jason Kelsey, his brother on my team, Travis Kelsey, uh, and that's fine. And I will put this out there right now. If Taylor Swift wants to date one of the players, fine. If she wants to be at the games, that's fine. If the camera wants to show that she's there a couple times, that's fine. What I didn't like is not that she was there, it was more how much the NFL was capitalizing off of it because they knew if they kept pointing the camera at her, even for only a split second, they knew they would get a lot more viewers, thus earning a lot more money.
And a lot more news headlines.
Yep, they would even show footage of her arriving at the stadium, or they would show Travis coming to one of her concerts, or something along that line. It's like, I'm happy for them, but I think they need some time out of the spotlight at some point.
Yeah. I know. At least give them a little space. But
Yeah, exactly.
I will say though, I do think it was pretty classy of her to just like pretty much right after doing that performance in Tokyo, she shows up the next night to see her boyfriend play. That's pretty classy.
Yeah, that's definitely support and dedication.
Yeah.
I will also give her props for how she responded to people like booing her or something along that line, because it would eventually become aware. She would eventually become aware of it at some point. And I remember at one point, I forget which game this was, but she was at the stadium. They showed the camera pointing at her. A lot of the crowd was booing her. She could hear it, and she just kind of waved it off, just didn't say anything nasty. I don't think she said anything to respond on social media, which honestly, in this day and age, can take a lot of restraint. So I give her props for that too. And I know some people, they will say like the NFL is scripted or it's rigged, which to me could at least be partially true. But I know a lot of people were saying Taylor Swift gave the Chiefs an unfair edge. I don't know how true that is. I don't know the facts. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But some people would say, oh, they don't want her boyfriend's team to look bad in front of her, so they're going to sway the game in her favor. Kind of sounds ridiculous. I wouldn't be too surprised, oddly enough, if that was true. but none of this blame falls on her. She was just, from what I could tell, being a decent, significant other to Travis, very supportive. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but from what I could tell, from what I saw, she's not the cause of all this controversy. It's the NFL itself.
It could be just a rumor for all we know. And I heard a similar rumor about like the Super Bowl in 1969 when the New York Jets famously only they were an underdog going into this game. They beat the Colts to win the title. And there was a rumor going around that I heard somewhere that the Colts threw the game on purpose, so to make the league look a little bit more competitive because like one half of the league had been winning all the games by a pretty big amount or something, so they wanted it to look a little more competitive. Now, which in a way kind of ruined the miracle story for me, but at the same time I'm thinking, you know what? We don't know. We don't know.
It's like in the end, the NFL is an entertainment industry of sorts. So it could very well be swayed in ways that we don't immediately realize. Um, but whether or not that's the case, I think a lot of people can agree that they are sick and tired of seeing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like I and many other people have said that with the way things have been going in favor of the Chiefs, it feels a lot like the Chiefs are the new Patriots and Mahomes is the new Brady. Right down to throwing tantrums when things don't go his way.
Yeah. Well, on a more plus side, um, what were your thoughts on like the commercials?
Oddly enough, I don't remember most of them. Maybe if my memory was jogged, but I do remember one specifically. It was like a Dunkin' Donuts ad where
Oh, the one with Ben
Ben,
Affleck and Matt Damon, Tom
yeah,
Brady.
and I think Jennifer Lopez
Right.
was sitting opposite of them while they were dancing like goofballs. I almost want to say David Spade was there too, but maybe I'm remembering that wrong.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember seeing him there, but I don't know. That would have been pretty funny though.
I know some trailers for different things were featured at the Super Bowl as well. I think that's when they first showed a trailer for the next Deadpool movie. But I could be wrong. I know people were making a big deal about it because Hugh Jackman is coming back one more time to play Wolverine. Um, I know Paramount Plus had some good ads where they featured a lot of characters from the different shows that they have on their streaming service. And there was one where a ref threw a flag at the Terracon from Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And in that movie, he's very much threatening. But when the ref is throwing the flag, he's like, oh, come on. Um, and I think there was one that had Patrick Stewart as Picard throwing Arnold
Arnold
from
from
Hey
Hey
Arnold
Arnold.
at a
Yes.
cliff.
Yes. I didn't see that one until it was on YouTube. I watched it from Watch Mojo, but yeah, I know that one.
Yeah, my mom definitely made sure to point it out, even if I missed it, because it featured Knuckles as well. Because I'm a big Sonic fan, for those who don't know. And Knuckles, in connection with the live action Sonic movies, is getting his own miniseries of sorts coming in the next month or two, I believe. So they featured him as well. And Knuckles is like, yes, throw him, do it. Um, but the whole ad itself is super funny because it also had Patrick Stewart in a bit of an older style football gear. I'm trying to remember some of the other characters that were there, but I do remember Picard, Arnold, Knuckles. I think Peppa Pig might have been there too.
Yeah, I think so.
But it was
Yeah, and I
kind
remember
of
on Sunday. This is kind of a maybe a bit of a jump, but you mentioned Pokemon. There were a bunch of like there's a whole kiosk at the mall in the atrium of Pokemon cards. They were having like a special sale or something. Yeah, they
recently.
were selling like Pokemon trading cards, like outside the stores.
I hadn't seen that. Um, I know for the past week or so, they were celebrating Mario Day, which falls on March 10th. So there would be some sales on Mario stuff, but I feel like I was in the mall recently. I don't remember seeing that, but maybe that was maybe last week or the week before. But I was not aware of that.
Yeah. So, what were you saying?
Uh, I was just kind of relisting some of the characters in that Paramount Plus ad.
All right. So, yeah.
I think that there was an ad with Jason Momoa too.
Oh, yeah, with Zach Braff and Donald Faison from Scrubs. Yeah, I think the T-Mobile ad. Yeah, that was one.
Oh,
That was kind of a standout one for me. They did like a parody of Flashdance. What a feeling. Yeah, and that was probably one
okay.
of my favorite commercials this year.
Yeah, I remember Jason Momoa in some funny ads before, and I think they were for the Super Bowl as well. I want to say it was either last year or the year before. Jason Momoa was featured in an ad where he looked like his normal self, but then he made it seem like his muscles were fake and he started peeling them off or something like that. Um, he's been in some surprisingly good ones. Like I feel like he's a good actor. I just haven't seen him in a lot of well-received things recently. Like I know the Aquaman films are filled with controversy because of one of the actresses. Um, his time as Aquaman in other movies like the Justice League, uh, most were not received well, and it doesn't sound like he's going to reprise his role when they reboot the universe again. But I do want to see him in some good stuff, so maybe I'll look up other stuff he's been in.
Yeah, did you see the Pringles commercial with Chris Pratt? Yeah, Chris Pratt of Guardians of the Galaxy fame. For those who don't know,
And I think he's starring in a upcoming animated Garfield movie.
I don't think I knew about that.
Yeah, there's an upcoming Garfield movie, and I want to say Chris Pratt voices him. Um, there has been a trailer released. I haven't seen it though, so I can't verify. But I don't remember off the top of my head. But some things, if my memory starts jogging, maybe I can pick it up again. But I don't remember offhand how that commercial goes.
Basically, the whole running joke is sort of he's like looking similar to the Pringles mascot, and it's like this whole trending thing, like Chris, the Pringles guy, or something.
I mean, that sounds vaguely familiar. Maybe I saw it like once, or maybe it was airing in the time that I kind of tuned out of the Super Bowl for a little bit. I mean, just somebody calling him like the Pringles guy or whatever, that does sound vaguely familiar. I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah, yeah. And probably the first time the world saw Chris Pratt with a mustache.
I mean, if they didn't see him in Guardians of the Galaxy or the MCU, like I know it wasn't just a mustache, but he did have some facial hair there. Um, yeah, with exclusively a mustache, I don't know if I've seen that.
Yeah. Well, you sound like you're a little bit more in touch than I am, but which is I don't know, kind of funny, interesting.
Well, I mean, part of the reason I know Chris Pratt this well at this point is because after like he joined the MCU and such, there were at least three different actors named Chris in the MCU. There was Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. There was Chris Evans as Captain America. There was Chris Hemsworth, who played Thor. And then there's Chris Pine, who didn't.
Was he like Kirk in the Star Trek movie?
He was Kirk in the Star Trek movies, or the more recent ones, I should say. I forget the guy's name, but he was Wonder Woman's love interest in the DC cinematic universe. I think it was Chris Pine, who also acted alongside Anne Hathaway in the second Princess Diaries movie. And I know that partly because I watched that movie a few times with my sister and my mom. But yeah, there's definitely a few Chris's, and sometimes that's poked fun at. Like one video that my mom and I sometimes would watch is this video James Corden did where he took a lot of the Avengers actors on a tour around the LA area or something. And when the first one shows up, I think it was Chris Pratt. He's like, "Can you tell me your name, please?" He's like, "Oh, I'm Chris. You're gonna have to be a little bit more specific."
Of course you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were a few other good ads, like the aforementioned Duncan ad, Aubrey Plaza for Mountain Dew, the Oreo twist on it. Basically, simply twist an Oreo apart and see which side has the cream on it, and that's how you make your decision. That was what that one was.
You know, the funny thing is, I've seen people doing that for years. So I'm surprised it's just now getting an ad.
Yeah, I've never seen people do that personally in real life. I guess I haven't gotten out as much, or I didn't get out as much as you did when we were younger. But but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, a few times in school, I would see somebody uh, kind of peel the Oreo in half just to see which side the cream falls on, and then they eat the cream first before they eat the cookie. But, people go about it different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I'd say yeah, it was a pretty good Super Bowl, pretty good game, good commercials, good Nickelodeon simulcast, and
Slightly disappointing outcome, but hey, what can you do?
sure, yeah, sure, yeah, it was a little bit. I don't know if I told you this. I was pretty ticked off for 4 reasons, and yeah, I had to leave the room almost immediately.
Yeah, right after the Chiefs scored that overtime touchdown, I turned the TV off.
Well, on a higher note, why don't we get into the curious question of and this time it's who would you like to see play a Super Bowl halftime show? And I'm going to let Jordan go first if you've got something.
Yeah, I've got a decent sized list here. And I tried to put a little bit of variety in there because I can't help but feel like a lot of the Super Bowl halftime performances recently have kind of fallen under a similar genre of music. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them.
Like contemporary pop, very modern.
There's been a lot of rap.
Yeah.
But the first one I wrote down is Nathan Sharp. He's been commonly known on YouTube as Nate Wants to Battle. And the reason I thought of him is because I've listened to a lot of his covers and a lot of his original music. I even have a autographed copy of one of his CDs over here somewhere. And it's like he has the kind of energy I could see a halftime performer having because you're performing at the Super Bowl. You want to keep people excited. You want to keep them pumped up for what's going to happen in the second half. So you want to bring that energy with you. And he's got a lot of hardcore songs. He's got, excuse me. see, what's the best way to word it? Like he's got some of those hype up motivational songs, or just ones that make you want to like get up and fight or push back against like the world's opposing forces, however you word that. I'm not entirely sure. But the style of music that he often does in like rock and sometimes acoustic guitar, I think could really fit the energy of a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Hopefully
yeah,
that all
good
makes
point.
sense.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I get it.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way about like even this year's halftime show with Usher. I felt like it was a good chunk of energy, I think good big amount of people. It was like a big dance party almost.
In a way, yeah. Uh, and then the next one I wrote down was Maroon 5 again. I know they performed a little while back. In fact, I think that was the same year the SpongeBob Sweet Victory fake out happened. Um, and the reason why I wrote them down again, even though they performed recently, is because I figured it would be cool to see them perform when there isn't much controversy surrounding it. Because I want to say this was around the time a lot of people were taking a knee during the national anthem, which I won't take sides on this right now, but it sparked a lot of controversy, and a lot of people who were offered to perform there before Maroon 5 was said no for that reason. They didn't want to be part of that controversy. But Maroon 5 basically said, forget that, we'll perform anyway. Some people really appreciated it. Some people hated them for it. So it's like maybe when there isn't as much controversy, they can come back and perform again when people are just excited to see them.
Yeah, I feel like no matter what decision you make, someone's going to be up in arms, and I don't know if it's going to get any better. This cancel culture and stuff we are in, I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
At the rate we're at, it's probably just going to get worse and worse. I feel like sometimes you just got to do what you feel like you can.
Right. In this modern world, a lot of people have been made to be hypersensitive about a lot of things, which can be very dangerous. Um, but just so I don't get too far off topic, I'll go into my next entry, which we've brushed upon a couple times already. But I said the SpongeBob cast. And like I said, there was that year where they had the Sweet Victory fake out. Because the year leading up to that Super Bowl, Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob, had passed away. And I know a lot of people, myself included, wanted to see SpongeBob and the cast sing Sweet Victory during halftime, particularly because it would fit the energy of the Super Bowl. It would be a great homage to Steven Hillenburg, and it would kind of reflect the episode Band Geeks, where they performed at a halftime football game type of show within the SpongeBob universe. And then when they announced that SpongeBob would be at the Super Bowl performing that song, a lot of people were so excited. And then a lot of people were either really angry or really confused when all they did was use them to introduce a rapper that would come out about 30 seconds later. And then they only played the intro to Sweet Victory when the fishes are playing the trumpets. And then that was it. They didn't play the whole song, they only played the first few notes. So I would love to see them, for the lack of a better word, fix that, where they actually bring the cast in to perform the whole song and not just part of it.
All right.
Excuse me. Um, and then next down the list, I got to thinking while I was making the list, what if there was an a cappella group that performed at Super Bowl halftime show? I'm not entirely sure how that works. I know a lot of performers will have backup dancers and such, and a lot of other instruments, but with a cappella, it's hard to really do that. But if they were somehow able to get an a cappella group in there were two groups that came to my mind. The first being Pentatonics, because they're, as far as I can tell, one of the biggest a cappella groups in the country. And of course, they have a lot of skill, a lot of talent. They have the beatboxer, they have the bass, they have high pitched, low pitched vocals. They have everything an a cappella group really needs. And I feel that would really work if it's done right. And the same can be said for one that I found on YouTube a few years ago, I believe, called Home Free. Another group of five. They have this same set of skills within those five guys. It's like I could really see either one of them perform at the Super Bowl halftime show. And if for some reason they didn't, maybe they could at least do the national anthem or something.
Yeah, like have you heard like the D Capella songs on the Incredibles 2 soundtrack? You know, they have like the separate themes for the different heroes.
That is true. And I know they kind of sang bits and pieces of them in the movie, like when the heroes first meet the guy that wants to bring them back and he starts singing Mr. Incredible's theme. But yeah, I would love to see an a cappella group
Yeah.
at the Super Bowl halftime at some point. And then moving on, I would think it would be very entertaining, but also kind of hilarious if we had Weird Al Yankovic. Yankovic. Ugh, my apologies. Um, it's like it could be exciting and funny at the same time. He, of course, could do some of his parodies or do some of his own original songs. But I think it would also kind of be hilarious if his performance was kind of a parody of previous Super Bowl halftime performances. Like he could do a parody of one of Usher's songs or Maroon 5 or any one of those people and kind of do a compilation, not necessarily poking fun at previous performers, but perform in his own style that would make everybody laugh.
Yeah, and he has actually parodied an Usher song in the past, so it probably would be a little easier for him to get away with.
Well, the interesting thing is, from what I understand when it comes to parodies, is that you don't necessarily need to ask the original artist for permission,
Yeah,
but
but he does it anyway.
oh yeah, Weird Al Yankovic goes out of his way to ask for permission regardless, which I think is a very honorable thing to do because he's not taking advantage of the system in any way. He's making sure that the original artist is okay with their song being parodied.
And
So
there
I'm
have been
sure if
times, in fact, believe it or not, that the original artists have actually shot his ideas down. So I think he might have done the right thing.
I would think so, yeah. Because I honestly would probably do the same thing if I was in the same position. Because if I was parodying a song, but I didn't know if the original artist was okay with it, I would probably feel awful after a while,
Yeah,
especially if they came out and said they didn't like it.
yeah.
But then I had a three or four more here, actually closer to five. Um, the next one being Skillet. They also have a lot of that hardcore energy that I feel would fit at a Super Bowl halftime performance. And I guess it could be seen as a little bit of a bias, but I actually saw them in concert when they came to an event in our state called Kingdom Bound. And my sister got us right up against the front of the stage, and their lead singer, John Cooper, high fived me. So there would be that part of me that would be freaking out in the best way if I watched them perform at the halftime show and be like, I've seen them in concert. That guy high-fived me. It was so cool. But even if that wasn't a factor, they have a lot of high energy songs that would fit perfectly at a Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah, they've got some good energy. I've definitely listened to some of their material myself. I know my brother, like at least when we were growing up, big fan of Skillet, and I think that maybe under certain conditions it could possibly work.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it falls on the performers, and sometimes it's based on how the NFL sets them up. Then I didn't want Weird Al to be the only comedic musician
Sure.
on the list because I figured it'd be nice to have more than one. And then the other one I wrote down is Tim Hawkins. Now, I haven't seen him in person, but my mom has. And for those who don't know who he is a musician. He's like a guitar player, but he's also a comedian. And some of the segments I've seen of him on YouTube, he does also parody some other songs. Like he did one of Hey There Delilah a while back. That's probably one of the first instances of him that I saw. So maybe I don't know how much comedy he could do in the Super Bowl performance, but maybe if he were to do some parodies kind of like Weird Al, he could throw in some jokes while he's singing the parody lyrics of a song.
Yeah.
Because then maybe that could allow people to listen to a song that they recognize, but then also put them all in a good mood with a good laugh.
Oh yeah. I think I know what you're saying. Yeah, and I'm not too familiar. I mean, I've maybe heard maybe a tidbit of his stand up. I think I've seen some videos that I think he did with John Christ, who's one of my favorite comedians, and I think based on your description, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And I'll have to look into the segments of Tim Hawkins and John Christ performing together because I've seen both of them in various videos doing their own stuff. I just don't think I've ever seen them together. So I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
Uh, and then for similar reasons to Nathan Sharp and Skillet, I think it would be an interesting idea to see either Fallout Boy or Panic at the Disco.
Mm.
They also have songs with a lot of energy. And I know I said I had a little bit of variety. Maybe this is a little bit repetitive, but with Fallout Boy, for example, I thought of the song that they sang for Big Hero 6 during the credits called Immortals, which I
Oh yeah.
think would be a fitting song for the Super Bowl. Panic at the Disco, I'm not sure which songs they could do, but I know they have that energy, and I know Brendan Urie is an incredible singer. So I feel like either one of them could work for similar reasons.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard Fallout Boy. They've got good energy, and there was a time, I'll admit, when I was younger, when there were a couple specific songs of theirs that I would play on repeat for a while. So,
Mhm.
and yeah, and I because I liked them so much. And then Panic at the Disco. I mean, I've seen like maybe clips of at least one of their music videos. It's very creative, very like almost Tim Burton-esque, and I feel like for visual creativity reasons, I could see the latter working strongly as well.
Yeah, I could definitely get on board with that reasoning, and I think I know which song you're talking about, but
No,
who
no, I
knows?
think it was "I Write Sins, Not Tragedies." That video, maybe.
Oh, I was thinking of Emperor's New Clothes.
Uh,
Or I think that's is that the name of the song?
man, I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar to me. You might know better.
I'll have to look it up again. I know how the song goes. I just don't remember the official title. Um, and then I had one more pick. This one I could see happening in not necessarily a perfect world, but one that's in a lot better of a state than the one we have now. Because he has been on the receiving end of a lot of controversy, whether it's true or not, and that's Vic Mignogna. I've talked to him, yeah, I've talked to him before, but I talked about him on this show prior for one reason or another. And for those that are not aware, Vic Mignogna is a voice actor that's done a lot of like anime or video game characters. And I'm sure most people would recognize him as the former voice of Broly in Dragon Ball or Edward Elric from Full Metal Alchemist. But around the time that the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie came out, there were accusations made against him that he ultimately never recovered from, for the lack of a better phrasing, because he tried to clear his name. I don't know if that ever got fully dealt with. There were some court cases or hearings or questionings or whatever. But even now, when his name is brought up, some people will say how awesome he is. There's fan pages, but then there's other people saying, "Oh, he's a monster." But that being said, I've met Vic before, and I've listened to some of his performances on Spotify even before the controversy was a thing. And he has a really good singing voice. And I feel like if done right, it could be a different Super Bowl. Better or worse kind of depends on musical tastes because some people like certain genres, some people don't. Um, but if it were possible, I feel like that could have been a good way for him to make a comeback. Because I don't even know what he's doing at this point. Like he doesn't have a lot of work from what I understand, and I feel like this could really jumpstart his career back up if there wasn't so much controversy.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like after Christina Aguilera flubbed up the national anthem at that one Super Bowl, I felt like people were ridiculously hard on her for it. I mean, some said it was because of the over singing or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think it's just. I remember thinking to myself, man, if I could, I would give her another chance to do it at like some other event or something, like just to like shut people up or make her feel better.
I would definitely say so, yeah, because people can be heavily critical of that sort of thing. And especially the people watching from home, they don't always realize, like, sometimes the weather condition can affect the person's voice. And sometimes that can really throw them off. And what they hear on the CD or wherever they listen to their music won't always be the same as when they hear it live because sometimes there might be a little bit of auto tune or editing with the audio to make it sound smoother. Uh, so I would definitely give her another chance. And in fact, one good example that comes to my mind was Idina Menzel. I think it was during the New Year's Eve parade celebrations, whatever, where she, of course, sang "Let It Go" because why wouldn't she? Because that was around the time Frozen had really spiked in popularity. Uh, but the problem was it was really cold, and sometimes singing in the cold can mess with your throat, your vocal cords, a lot, keeping you from hitting the range that you can usually reach. So when she went for that last high note at the end, she did not hit it. It did not sound good. And I felt bad for her because I knew a lot of people were going to say how bad it was, even though it wasn't really her fault. And I feel like the same can be possibly, I don't know the whole story behind Aguilera, but I feel like it's a similar type of thing. I feel like she, like you said, should get another opportunity.
Well, I can say from experience, My brother recorded an EP with his band, a little band that he had back in the day several years ago, and he kind of helped me, or he enlisted me to kind of help him kind of make decisions on how it would turn out. And one thing he had me do was like he recorded actually multiple takes of the same lyric, the same line, and he would have me pick between them. So, if it sounds good, there's a chance that there's a lot of splicing going on behind the scenes that you can't pick up on.
Right.
So live is usually a whole nother ballgame. Some singers can probably handle it extra well. They've probably got incredible vocal stamina or breath control or whatever to like carry a melody just fine. But it's not that easy. Like with studio, you can kind of rig things more.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, there's a lot of splicing, a lot of editing that we don't pick up on because the editing is just so smooth. But I think it's really smart that your brother would reach out to you and have you pick which one was better. Because a lot of times when you make something, you don't usually get that outside perspective. And sometimes the outside perspective or another pair of eyes can pick up on something that you would easily miss. So the fact that he would go to somebody else to get their thoughts is a smart move so that he can kind of get an audience perspective as to which sounds better and ultimately come up with the best product.
Yeah, well, I think it's something musicians typically do in studios, for all I know. But yeah, yeah, I think I agree though.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's your whole list, and I have seven listed for mine,
Okay.
and the first one is the band OK Go. Probably best known for like songs like "Here It Goes Again," "This Too Shall Pass," and they've become notorious for super creative, very very visual effects driven single shot music videos. Like they did one for another song where it was like 10 seconds of rapid fire paint action slowed way down. Yeah. And they did another one for another song, where they did eh, the whole thing in sort of a space simulator. So they've done a bunch of visually creative stuff, and I think seeing that kind of stuff brought to life on stage would be intriguing for me.
And you said they've filmed some of them in one continuous shot?
Yeah. They pretty much did like they're known for doing like all their videos that way, pretty much. But yeah,
I feel like that would honestly benefit them if they were to perform at the Super Bowl because the difference between performing in a studio and performing live is that when you perform live, you can't go back and do something again. It's kind of like when actors like us are rehearsing for our shows because we can go back and fix something during rehearsals or tech week or something. But once there's an audience in front of us, there is no going back. You just have to keep moving forward
I think
and
I
try.
kind of like that honestly. The more I think about it, at a stage versus screen, I feel like when you're up there doing it live, you've only got one take, so you're less tempted to like second or umpteenth guess
Right.
how you're doing this or that part.
Yeah. And as a result, I think OK Go would be a little bit more comfortable than some musicians because they already kind of do a one take and done deal.
Yeah, yeah. I'll take and then I listed one a classic rock band, Nine Inch Nails. There's at least one song of theirs that I really got invested in, and they've got some good energy, some pretty cool visual stuff, and yeah. And so, guess for similar reason, I'd say them too.
Okay. I feel like I've heard of Nine Inch Nails. I just haven't heard of their songs, rather heard their songs up until this point. I feel like I hear their name kind of being tossed around in various conversations. So yeah, I'll definitely, if I remember, try to check out some of their music.
Yeah, I think Trent Reznor, who's in the band, was one of the songwriters on the SpongeBob musical.
Was he really?
Yeah, yeah. They had like a bunch of big names: Trent Reznor, David Bowie, a bunch of others. Yeah.
I mean, I know David Bowie, he was in SpongeBob at one point, particularly their Atlantis special. But
Yeah.
regardless.
Then third, I wrote down Melanie Martinez. You might recognize that name. She was a contestant on the third season of The Voice, and then went on to have a pretty notorious recording career professionally. And I've seen I've seen a couple music videos that she's put out. Very artsy, very theatrical, and and it's like, I don't know what the verbiage I'm looking for, a vibe. I would like to see more of that, like live, like on a Super Bowl stage, probably.
Okay, and I think I actually do remember remember her at some point. Um, I will say I haven't seen The Voice a lot recently. I think I kind of stopped watching after Adam Levine left.
Hmm.
Um, but I do know at some point there was another singer on that show who happened to have the same exact name as me,
Yes.
and he ended up winning. Um, yeah, I feel like Melanie Martinez is a name I remember from that show.
Yeah. Yeah. And then probably maybe considerably more famous name. I don't know. Halsey. Um, no, there's at least one of her songs that I like, and yeah, again, vibe very has a sort of almost ambient vibe, and a good I take in there. I've seen clips of one of her videos. And those again, very almost a very theatrical or almost moody look. I feel like, yeah. So I think that'd be interesting to see.
Okay, like a moodier
Yeah,
style Super
yeah,
Bowl performance. That
yeah,
could be different.
yeah,
Yeah, I would definitely at least want to see at least one Super Bowl like that.
yeah. And second, then I kind of actually thought of this as we were going tonight. Bow Wow, who on the third season of The Masked Singer competed, and you know, I probably this is more based on like his high energy, his dancing on the show,
Hmm.
pretty much, and his high energy rap rhyme mm, ability. So I think that would be something engaging.
Yeah, I do remember his performances on The Masked Singer. He was constantly moving around. He did have that energy, like you said. And that's the other thing I didn't really think to touch upon um, with Super Bowl halftime performances is that I don't think the performer should ever be standing still for that long. Because if you're just standing there in one spot singing, it's not going to come across as well as, say, constantly walking around, like getting people to throw their hands up in the air or something like that. And Bow Wow would definitely have the capability to do that. Because almost any time I saw him perform on The Masked Singer, he was constantly walking around, interacting with the audience, getting them hyped. So that could translate really well to a Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then I've got a couple of comedic ones to kind of wrap up the list.
Mhm.
And one is one that's probably not as often talked about, but I feel like it's kind of deserving because she's just so versatile and so fun to watch.
Mhm.
That is Chloe Fineman, a comedian on Saturday Night Live. She has done a handful of killer celebrity impressions, including Britney Spears. Yeah. One of my favorite sketches, well, a couple of my favorite sketches from the show starred her as Britney. And and she I recently watched because I'm such a big fan, I looked her up on YouTube and I found a commercial that she did for Maybelline. It was basically a kind of like a fictionalized version of Britney, kind of advertising this special eyeliner product. And
Okay.
it felt almost like more or less an authentic, like sincere Britney Spears impression with like the poppy clothes, the dancing, and the singing. I'm not sure how much of it was manufactured in post, but it sounded good and it looked good, and the energy and the charm and the arm and the overall execution was so cool.
Yeah, I could definitely see that working. And honestly, having an impressionist for a Super Bowl halftime show, I feel like that could bring along some neat little twists to the average Super Bowl halftime performance for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a big fan of hers. I would probably love to see that. And lastly, like yourself, I said also Weird Al Yankovic, and you know, not just because of his good parodies, but also because of like his style of humor that is so like like thrives on goofy and bizarre in such a cool creative way. And like the visuals and the kind of jokes he comes up with are so like out there.
Oh, for
And
sure.
yeah, and in such a masterful way too. And you probably have heard the story about how some people were actually petitioning to get him to headline a Super Bowl halftime show, and that's what led to the creation of one of his more recent songs. I don't know if you heard that or not, but
I was not aware of that. No.
no,
Like,
but
I feel like I knew about the petition. I didn't know that he made a song in response.
no. Well, yeah, well, so based on that, it's probably not that far out of the question. Maybe in time we'll see it. Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, honestly, even if during the Super Bowl halftime, all he did was go out there and sing his Albuquerque song, which is like 11 and a half minutes long, I feel like that would, in of itself, be the best part of the whole night.
Oh man. Oh yeah, that would be probably received really well because I think that's like one of the most requested songs at his concerts. So I think people would love that.
Oh, for sure. I definitely would.
Yeah, well, I guess that's going to do it for tonight. And again, you know, take advantage of our platforms, our ways of communicating, and like I said in the intro, you can listen back. I listed all the platforms we're on and how you can communicate with us, and you know, do so, share whatever, whenever you like.
And please interact with us as much as you like. We may not always respond right away, but if you have questions, comments, if you want to submit your own take on something we've discussed before, like who you would like to see at a Super Bowl halftime show or various other topics we've discussed before, please let us know. And if you have anything you want us to talk about in the future, that's also a good way to communicate with us because, for all you know, if you have a suggestion and we like it, we might even give you a shout out partway through the episode.
All right, well, we'll see you again soon. Until then, take care, everybody.
So long.